Welcome to the AU Scoop. I'm your host, Philip Dukes, aka Dukes D Scoop. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Dukes D Scoop. And make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. A very, very important day this weekend, Saturday, January 25th, on the Plains as Auburn hosts its Junior Day. This day is so important, not only because of the amount of players that you'll be getting on campus, not only because they'll be able to see a basketball game that evening. I think 8:30 is the tip off, 7:30 Central. For those that are going to be staying overnight or those who made plans, they'll be able to enjoy the game and see that atmosphere in the jungle to see the number one Auburn Tigers basketball team go up against the Tennessee Volunteers, who are currently ranked sixth. So they're going to see a really crazy environment. And it's just a sign of where Auburn, how strong Auburn really is recruiting. Now, last year, when I was still with On Three at a national level, I go on Josh Newberg's show, and he says, "What do you think?" This is after the first game when they hang 70 on, I forgot who they play, Alabama A&M maybe. And I said, "I think they can be number one." And I think they're gonna have the number one class. And at the time, Auburn was buzzing. I believe they were making their way towards top five. I think the Deuce Knight uh, buzz was getting a little louder at the time. It was still pretty quiet at that time, but I knew some of the things that were working and some of the guys that they were in on. I think I just got word that Justice Terry was kind of being a little bit receptive. See how that went, but still, my whole thing was that if Auburn won 8 or 9 games, I felt like they could have uh, the number one class overall in the country. Well, they didn't get close. Okay, cool. But the fact that they still had a top 8 class with a 5-7 record is straight up amazing. All right, and another testament to how well Auburn and that staff has been recruiting. I know a lot of fans are, like you didn't get the 5-star, you didn't get Naeem Alford. There's some guys that you missed on, but there's no way for that on-field product to produce a class as highly rated as it is. You got to be excited for what happens if Auburn actually puts it together on the field. So this Junior Day is really important as a reset for the year, right? This is a fresh recruiting cycle, and there will be a guest that'll be there that's from the transfer portal that is really someone you would have to look at, and we'll get to that in a little while. But this is really important, and it's I think the last reason I want to say that this is really impressive. This Junior Day list is so impressive. It's because of where you came from. All right, so story time with Dukes. 2022. So by now, I can say whatever at this point, me being independent. So I had just signed my contract with 24/7, but one of the reasons I was able to come up with so much inside information, or I knew a lot about what was going on, was because I mentor kids in the city of Atlanta, as well known. And some of these kids, whether I know their parents really well, or I kind of been just in my neighborhood, I do a lot of community outreach. Um, Players and non-players, athletes and non-athletes, but in particular, athletes that were being recruited by Power Five schools. I had some experience, so whether it be a 7-on-7 team or whatever, I would sometimes take kids on their visits, or take parents or whatever. I would be in the group. Well, this particular time, Auburn's Junior Day 2022, I literally brought a few kids down. There was only 13, I think, of those kids. It was only 13 kids that year. And out of those 13 kids, about 5 of them I brought with me. All right. And some parents came as well. Okay. Funniest thing in the world. So I go through the whole Junior Day presentation. I get to see that. I think this was the previous regime, Brian Hartson. I got to saw him recruit, all of the pictures, the locker room stuff, all of that. So I get to see everything from an inside view. We walk over to the basketball game after, the second part of the Junior Day event, and I see Jason Caldwell, and Jason Caldwell sees me walking down with the parents and the recruits, and he has a fit. You hear me? He is like, "What are you doing, Deuce? You got to get away from there. They'll never let us in over there. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Bro, I ain't know. Like, that's like my first real job, like in media, right?" So I'm Jason Caldwell. Shout out to Jay, man. That's my dog. And so I'm like, "Dang, did I just lose my job?" but I'm in too deep at this point. So I talked to the owner of the site, and he was like, "No, you're good, but you probably shouldn't sit down on the floor. You probably shouldn't sit down with the kids and the parents. Maybe you should, just we'll get you another ticket or whatever." So, but that's my little anecdote. But Jason was freaking, and it ended up going well. But that whole story, I saw what it looked like a few years ago. No juice, absolutely no juice. You could kind of tell, you could kind of foresee how that was going to go. Anybody who works the Auburn beat, whether it be Jeffrey Lee, whether it be Cole, whether it be Hope, whether it be Christian Clemente, Nathan, Jay Tate, anybody who knows that there was literally almost no juice during that time. And I saw it firsthand. All right, cool. So from that point, I recognized some of the deficiencies that Auburn was going to have recruiting and how tough it was going to be. So to go from 13 players in 2022 at your junior day to have over 35, and even the guys, like a lot of those guys weren't even serious contenders. I mean, to come to Auburn. They all did well as far as recruiting wise, but none of them were really like serious contenders to come to Auburn. You got 35 guys coming on campus this Saturday, and they're all interested in Auburn. I mean, interested enough that you would take a weekend where some other Tennessee's having a big day this weekend. Like Tennessee's going to have visitors there. There's a lot of places these kids could be going. These kids could be going, but they're choosing to come to Auburn. That speaks volumes. 35. So I think that for Auburn fans, you have to look at this as a plus one. Two, you also have to look at it as this staff, regardless of what happens on the field, regardless of what people are saying, regardless of how they've been negatively recruited, this staff is going to recruit like if it's the last thing they do, they're going to recruit. And no matter what happens, I don't care how good a scheme is, I don't care how good the defense is, I don't care about any of that. If you don't have the players to run it, it doesn't matter. And the better your players, the less you have to do when it comes to coaching it up. So at where we are right now, the scene is set. Let's go find out who these 35 guys are. Now, 24/7, they're on 3, the barn, they've all done a great job of compiling this list. We'll go down the list right here. So starting off, you got to talk about a guy like Emmanuel Iheanacho. Georgetown Prep, Baltimore, Maryland. Another guy from Maryland, DJ Durkin Special. When you talk about the number 2 player in the country overall visiting your junior day, coming from where Auburn has come from, that this ain't just about NIL. And a lot of people want to put it on Auburn just spending the most money. Auburn just ain't spending the most money. They're recruiting. Coach Freeze is recruiting. Previously, we had a coach that was that operated more in the CEO role. He would speak to guys who we felt comfortable speaking to, but when it came to getting players that he may not have had that rapport with, he kind of shot. Now, I wouldn't say shied away from it, but he was more focused on the football side of it. He wanted the coaches to recruit. Well, one of the and that works for some people, but in Auburn, to see Hugh Freeze be as connected to the recruiting process as he is, it's paying dividends. That's how you get that type of recruiting class with a 5-7 record on the field. So to get a guy like Emmanuel Iheanacho down, I think it's huge. 6'7", 350 pounds, mammoth human being. And when you talk about in the dark days of Auburn, not even the dark days, just talk about the last 10, 15 years. The one position that has been almost impossible to recruit from a high school level is offensive tackle. Period. You've gotten good edge rushers. You've gotten not a ton of them, but you've gotten some good edge rushers in. You've gotten some good D tackles. You think about a Derek Brown. You've gotten good linebackers, Owen Papo. Plenty of good guys in the secondary. You've already recruited the wide receivers. You got a good offense. You even got some good interior offensive linemen. You got some decent runners. You got some good running backs. I'm not gonna say decent, but what's really been lacking has been the offensive tackles. So to have the to be on the number 2 offensive tackle in the country and the number 2 player in the country to be on his list right now, I think is huge. Now, the second most important thing when you talk about building a football team outside of quarterback. So outside of quarterback, the second most important thing from protecting the quarterback is going to get the other person's quarterback? Well, you got Zion Ely, who's committed to Maryland, another Maryland special, St. Francis Academy, where Auburn has had a lot of success as of recent. Now you've got the number 3 player in the country and the number 1 edge rusher. I mean, like these two could make a junior day by themselves, but there are plenty more coming. So you go from him, and now you go to Tristan Keys, the number 2 receiver in the country, out of Mississippi, Hattiesburg. Now you think about Deuce Knight. What can he do to help you, right? One of the best prospects in recent history in at quarterback from Mississippi is who's now been ranked a 5-star by Rivals, who's on campus leading throwing sessions. So of course he's going to be one of those vocal recruiters. So 1,000% Tristan Keys is somebody that you want in the class and who's had interest in Auburn for a long time. I messaged with him when I was still on 3 and just to gauge his early recruitment as far as teams that he was interested in. And Auburn has always been one. So shout out to TK. And shout out to Marcus Davis, who I don't think there's anybody in the country, maybe outside of Heartline at Ohio State, who's doing the type of recruiting that Marcus Davis has done. And I think Tristan Keys is just a guy that when you watch Tristan Keys play, you see when you draw up a wide receiver, that's what it looks like. So shout out to Tristan Keys, and not far behind him, you have another guy, prototypical wide receiver, in Sadarian Morgan, who's ranked number 19 in the country. And while we go down these rankings, I want people to understand something, that 5-stars are basically the top 32 teams in the country, and they get released, and those rankings in this class are going to be released as the season goes on. So right now, if the season stopped today, Sadarian Morgan, CD Morgan, would be a 5-star. Out of Benjamin Russell, Alexander City, Alabama, 6'5", 210 pounds. I mean, if he wasn't as explosive as he is, you would think that he has a frame that could grow into a tight end. But he's too explosive. He can really run. He's got wheels. And I think what sets him apart really is his explosion at that height. Usually when you see taller guys, you don't see that type of athleticism. You see guys who more like, they're more stride. They're more the stridey type. I know that's not a word, but they run like gazelles, things of that nature. But this guy can be choppy with his steps, and he has some agility. So I think he's another one. Shout out to Marcus Davis. When you have 2 of the top 3 wide receivers in the country on campus, this junior day is insane already, just with those guys. Now you go into your running back position. Now, has Auburn got that 5-star type running back lately? You've had some really good running backs, but none at that 5-star level. Derek Cooper is one of the best looking running back prospects in recent memory. And something that helps you with Auburn is he's being coached by Auburn legend. I call him an Auburn legend, Worm, Sean Shivers, especially after what he did in the Iron Bowl that time. He'll always go down in Auburn lore. That picture, that meme, will always circulate, especially around Iron Bowl time. So shout out to him. But when you talk to Shivers about Derek Cooper, his eyes just light up. He believes he has the best backfield in the country, and I wouldn't argue with him. Derek Cooper is that guy. Georgia's on him. I think he's right now. A lot of people think he's going to be a Miami lead, but to get him to Auburn, and when you think about his teammate, Denarius Gray at Chaminade Madonna already being committed, that can only help. And we're talking, and we're just going down the list. This guy is when we talk about the success that Auburn has had in South Florida, all the way back to the Fort Lauderdale area, all the way back to the Dillard days. This is one of those guys that you hope that Auburn that they can land in the class, and what they can do for you, and what he can do for you in the future. Not on the field, but also off the field with recruiting. But right now, he's ranked like 23 in the country. So if we're counting right now, and I'm doing this based on not players that have already been signified as 5-stars, but these are players that are ranked in the top 32 in the country on somebody's site, which would make you a 5-star. 1, Iheanacho 1, Ely 2, Keys 3, Morgan 4, Cooper 5. Another one, Trenton Henderson out of Pensacola, Florida, edge rusher, 6'5", 230. He's ranked 29 in the country. On the 32 player scale right now, he would be a 5-star. That's 6. And Braylon Womack, safety out of Mississippi, Hartsfield Academy. Heavy Ohio State lean, but he's the number 32 player in the country. Really explosive, about 6'1", 205 pounds hitter, and he can cover. You can play him at either you play him at the field safety or the boundary, and if you play him at the slot nickel, if in a pinch, almost a la Champ Anthony. So right now, let's just tally that up one more time. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the top 32 players in the country. 7 of the top 32 will be in Auburn this weekend. That is insane. To think that, imagine if in 2022 with those 13 players were there, how much different it would have felt like. How much different would it have been if half of those players were in the top 32 in the country? It would have made headlines. But now Auburn is recruiting at a pace where them having 7 of the top 32 is just like, that's how Auburn is recruiting. That's how they, as the young folks say, that's how they come for sure. So I think just even breaking those down, there are a ton of other guys, but we can go through the names. You got Jair Edwards out of St. Francis, another Durkin special. Caden Prothrow, who everybody is in love with, 6'6", 210 pounds. Basketball game last week, I think he had Billy Napier, Mike Norvell, and Kirby Smart at the same game watching them hoop. So he's somebody who I imagine would be going to the basketball game. Auburn commit Devin Carter, who previously was ranked in the top 32. That was a huge get. When you talk about someone who has pedigree, former teammate of Ken Lee, believe he was a freshman when Ken Lee was a senior at Cedar Grove, if I'm not mistaken. But someone who's real popular in the Atlanta area. This is one that I think Kenyatta Watson had a lot to do with. So shout out to Kenyatta. But absolutely, and Marcus Davis as well. Like when you talk about wide receiver recruiting, I can't say it enough. What type of job this guy is doing. Hezekiah Harris, another recruit, 6'5", 230, grown man. You got to keep him in the class. Zion Gibson, Alabama commit, cornerback, Gaston City, Alabama. Shout out to Reggie Worthy. Botany Cleveland is one of my favorite prospects in this class. 4-starter, number 83 player in the country. Now, as we get down here, we're going to go down and we're going to count the top. How many of these players are actually in the top 100? Then you got Shadarius Tootle, 6'3", 225. Banger of a linebacker. Looks like he's going to be able to run around at 245, 250 pounds easily. And he may not be finished growing. So when you got a guy like that with that type of pure mass at that age, all you can do is just look at his upside because his body isn't finished developing. And it's just it's really such a top flight ball of clay to work with that you can mold. Shout out to Coach Dom. I would love to see what he's going to do with a guy like Shadarius Tootle when he gets to Auburn in that conditioning program. Speaking of the conditioning program, you got Xavier Tiller, number 111 overall tight end, Langston Hughes, one of the kids I mentor, currently committed to Texas A&M, but crazy about Auburn. And wouldn't be surprised if his teammate Carson Baker makes an appearance, but he hasn't decided yet. All right, so we're at 111. All right, now let's go down. We're going to count again of the top 100 players. How many will be in Auburn? So 1, Iheanacho 1, Ely 2, Keys 3, Morgan 4, Cooper 5, Henderson 6, Womack 7, Edwards 8, Prothrow 9, Carter 10, Harris 11, Gibson 12, Cleveland 13, Tootle 14. 14 of the top 100 players. And at 111, 15. So the 15 top players that are being Auburn on Saturday are all in the top 111. How does that not excite you? And I know people feel like it doesn't matter until December. It does matter, man. Look at where you've come from as an Auburn fan. Literally, there were only 13 players there a few years ago. Now, there are 15 of the top 111 and 14 in the top 100, actually the top 86. That is light years away of where you come from. You've got to be excited. Man, after that, you got Jermichael Garrett, J. Mike, top 132 linebacker commit. Marquez Daniel, Booker T. Washington, a 6'5" freak of an athlete who's blowing up the same way Joseph Phillips did a couple of years ago, where people knew that he was coming, and then when you actually see him, it's like, yeah, he looks the part. He probably is the part. And you're going to have stiff competition to make sure that he ends up at Auburn, but he's really a great athlete. People have been knowing about him for a while. Jay Lamar out of Moultrie, Georgia, home of my man Nate French for those old school Auburn fans from the early 2000s. Coker County Special. He's top 150. I'm not going to keep counting, but, listen, we can go down the list and I'll say everybody else. Tylen Wilson, Tylen Wilson, safety, 91 overall. Jermaine Kinsler, D lineman, 6'5", 270 pounds. EJ Crowell, have you said? This kid reclassified monster. When you see his highlights, you're going to love it. Zion Giles, Denarius Gray, Nas McCoy. Nas McCoy, who a lot of people see as a Georgia lean, is really, he comes from that Buford program. He's really giving Auburn a long look. Great safety. I think he may be underrated. Originally from College Park, Georgia. Shout out to Nas. NASCAR, what we call him. Ant Davis, same thing. Ant Davis, another kid from over here, played at Burdett when he was young, familiar with his family as well. Two other guys that I think Auburn sits in a really good place for Anthony Davis for sure. A teammate of Tyler Atkinson at Grayson High, the #1 player in the country. Evan Jacobson, coming all the way from Iowa. Tight end, 6'5", 230. Jordan Thomas from New Jersey. Jaden Broadneck, Jordan Thomas is an athlete. I don't know if they see him more as a defensive back or a receiver, but he can do either one. Jaden Broadneck, safety. Xavier Larice, safety. JB Shabazz, old tackle, 6'6", 280. Parker Pritchett, 6'4", 310, interior offensive lineman. Wayne Henry, Auburn commit, 5'9", 160. But listen, man, when you talk about a kid, he reminds me of Cadillac Threezy, man. Just a guy that you can put anywhere and he's going to ball. He just needs a shot. And he will hit you. Bubba Frazier from Savannah, Georgia. Travis Burgess, the 6'5", 185-pound guy, quarterback out of Grayson. Just won a state championship. Put some people in the mind of frame-wise Deuce Knight and Darnell Collins. Bro, listen. You hear all of these names. How can you not be excited about Junior Day if you're an Auburn fan? This ain't nothing about no inside scoop. This ain't nothing about, yeah, you got to come here. You're going to get this. No, this is me talking about what's really going on. If you're an Auburn fan, how can you not be excited? I go on a message board. Shout out to Auburn Live on 3. They got some of the most cynical fans. They got some of the greatest fans, too, but especially the ones that are like, hey, if Dukes talks about them, they ain't coming. I wish I had the names. Next time I'm going to shout y'all out, but I did want to give y'all a shout out. But, man, even those guys, the ones who are so afraid of saying that Auburn is just, that people who are speaking positively on Auburn are sunshine pumping. Listen, man, you got to start somewhere. And I want to send this message to the most cynical of message board posters who spend their $9.99 a month to complain about everything. No matter how you spend it, there is nothing for even the most cynical of Auburn fans to complain about this Junior Day. Zero. It can't hurt. So when you rank Junior Days, and when you look at what Georgia was able to do last week, this Junior Day rivals anybody in the country. And when you recruit with the intentions of having the top class overall, these are the things that you have to do. And Auburn is starting to showcase signs of being one of those upper echelon teams in terms of recruiting. And we all know that recruiting is the lifeblood of a football program. And as long as they continue to recruit at this pace, I don't see why they won't have at minimum a top 10 class, possibly a top 5 class, and as long as they can put it together on the field. And I think that even with the other, what's my man's name? Is it Jaden Thomas from Notre Dame? Hold up. Let me pull that up for y'all right quick. Oh, man. Yeah. Jaden Thomas, Notre Dame, 83 wide receiver. I think he had 16, 17 catches last year in the transfer portal. He'll be at Auburn. So you already have an embarrassment of riches in that room, but they're still looking to top grade and get better. What my man JD Piquel say from on 3? They're recruiting like a program. And I think if you're an Auburn fan, you have nothing to do but be excited about this Junior Day. We'll talk about how Junior Day went. I'll talk to a couple of the players, get some of the feedback. I'll scour the internet for all the information I can get, and we'll get back together later on at the top of the week. Man, shout out to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DukesDScoop. And if you're an Auburn fan, you already went through a terrible season. Relax. This is the time for you to get excited. Not overly excited. The basketball team is good. You got the number one team in the country, and you got 35 of the best players in the country coming to watch that atmosphere at Auburn and learn more. So hopefully when they get there, when they talk about Auburn, they don't say University of Auburn. They can learn more, and that's how you spread brand awareness, right? Where kids talk about Auburn University the same way they talk about the Ohio State University. All right, that's my time. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at DukesDScoop, and please hit the like and subscribe button. All right, see y'all next time. Oh, and I'm not a Mets fan. I just threw this hat on because it went with the hoodie. Sure.